Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion, and you may notice here that I have the Atlas open with the Master Missions highlighted on it, and that's because there have been some major changes announced to the way that Master Missions are going to be working from the launch of 3.8 going forwards. Now this is not just a Blight League change, this is going to immediately go live in Standard as well, and it's a major overhaul of what are currently the daily Master Missions. Now, the philosophy is changing away from a encourage players to log in every single day by use of master missions towards a more of a system where you play on your own schedule. So currently, once per day at 10 AM for me, and your time zone may be different, all your existing missions on the Atlas are scrapped, and you get new ones for each master that's based on your last completed map's tier. So the last map that I completed was a Forge of the Phoenix, and consequentially I've got lots of high tier master missions that spawned while I was at work today. I come back home, or come back after the day, and 10 o'clock has ticked over, so all of the master missions have respawned. They'll be somewhere very close to tier 16, and it's always plus or minus one tier of the last map you did, but 16 is treated as 15 for this purpose. Anyway, that's the system as it exists now. It's all changing. So no longer will it be daily, instead credit will save up, and this is going to be good for weekend players. It removes the inherent advantage that someone like me that is able to comfortably log in and play for a short period of time on any given weeknight has during a league, because I have more access to masters than someone with the same amount of playtime but that concentrates it on the weekend. And this advantage has actually been growing a lot since Delve League. Well, really since Betrayal, since the Delve content went core with the launch of the Betrayal League. Currently, you have an enormous advantage in Sulfite gathering, which is worth as much as about 3/4 of a Sulfite Scarab every day, if you are able to log in and do your master mission every single day. The other changes so what's going to happen is that you'll be able to store up master missions that you don't complete on a given day and run them at a later stage. And I'll just bring up the GGG post on this post about this, and you'll see here that we've got the whole information that they've got here. If you ever felt like you were missing out by taking a day off from mapping, this changes for you. Currently, master missions are handed out daily on your Atlas, appearing as a symbol over certain maps. Opening a map with a symbol over it guarantees you'll encounter the associated master, and by running maps you also have a chance to generate more master missions in this style, in addition to each map having a small chance to randomly generate with a master inside of it. Unfortunately, if you're not actively pursuing these master missions on your Atlas, or if you don't log in for a day or more, you are missing out on opportunities. In Blight, we're changing this so that your master missions can accumulate. On the right hand side of your Atlas, each master has a counter like this one, oops, not the shop there, that tracks how many of their master missions you have accumulated and on which map tiers they can be used, e.g. white, yellow or red. Now this is an important change here. Early on in a league, often, and this is particularly important for solo self-found players, often you will have, say, you might only own three of the different tier 15 maps on your Atlas on any given day. So if you've used all of your Shaper's Orbs, there are 8 different tier 15 maps that you'll have access to, and you may only have 3 of them in your inventory in stock. So if a master mission spawns on one of the 5 maps that you don't have, you are in a spot of bother trying to find that map quickly before the master either respawns somewhere else or the next daily timer ticks over. Now you're just going to be able to choose which map you want to run it on. There's also another big change that comes with this. It is now possible to buy and sell bulk master missions. So for instance, you'll be able to say next league, let's say that you're someone that only plays on the weekend, you might be able to say, okay, I have 6 red map Nico missions saved up, and I want to run them all. But I'll sell you portals, and you can then come in, pay me say 5 chaos per map, and you'll be able to share the sulfite with me. And if you get 5 players doing that, then suddenly that's a pretty good way of just turbocharging your currency early in a league. So there's quite an advantage actually to getting the maps on day one, then even taking some time off and not coming back to the game for a few days. And then, you can just immediately go, all right, I will now sell all of my accumulated master missions, the ones that other players want, which in practice is going to be Nico and Einhar maps. Now, so as I mentioned, you no longer need to have the exact right map as well. You don't miss out because you haven't had a palace drop for you and Zana appears on palace. This is going to be really important on day one of a new league. If you're the sort of person that tries to get to the center of the atlas really quickly, then you'll find that on day one you're going to have access to a lot more you're going to have access to your first Zana mission for certain. You're going to get guaranteed access to that first Zana mission. That's really important because doing Zana's mission, or more precisely, opening the map that Zana's daily is on, resets her inventory. That inventory is an absolute goldmine for getting started on your Atlas progression at the very beginning of the league, and so you will now be guaranteed to be able to reset Zana at the start of the league, assuming that Zana's vendor maps work the same way. Now, there are some changes to the way that random masters spawn, and they're mentioned in this dev blog, which I'll link to below. But the main juice of it is that you will less frequently get a master popping up unannounced in a mission, and more frequently when you kill a map boss, you will be rewarded by having one of your masters gain a mission. So basically it's a reward for killing map bosses, and it's also a significant decrease to the chance of getting ganked by an unexpected intervention encounter in a map. Currently, we know the percentage chances of these events. A given map is 8% to have a random Nico. So that means if there's no master icon over a map, there is an 8% chance for it to contain Nico. And I'm using Nico as an example here, but the same is true for all of the other masters. It is also a 4% chance when you kill a map boss to have Nico respawn somewhere else. The new change, we don't have exact numbers, but just by reading the words that GGG have written up in this dev blog, I'm going to predict that it's now 3% to get a random Nico in a map, and 8% per boss kill to have Nico spawn. These numbers are an educated guess based on the idea that you will get slightly less masters overall if you were actively pursuing every master mission you had the opportunity to. So those are the changes. There's a lot of discussion about potential exploits around these changes, and just to outline how this sort of, I use the term exploit, like it's borderline. To me, it doesn't quite cross the line of being cheating, but it sort of feels wrong enough that it's close to the line. And now, so these borderline exploits work in the following way. You set up what I would term as zombie accounts. These are accounts that you make a character and get them to maps on, but they're not your real Path of Exile account. So they're not. You're not basically playing the game on these in any sort of active sense. What you're doing is you log them in, you hand them down really powerful equipment from your main account. So your main account has, gotten into maps. Let's say you're doing this on day 7 of a new league. You've got yourself a whole bunch of insane twink gear. You've got the gold room, but it's not just the gold room, it's a gold room with 2 good corrupts on it. You've got yourself a skin of the loyal with 2 good corrupts on it. Maybe you haven't gone quite that far. Maybe you're just fine with a +1 tabular and some other sorts of twink gear. You definitely have fossil crafted gloves because fossil crafted gloves are insane, especially at very, very low level. And I made a whole video on twink gear, on crafting twink gear, if you're interested in that. In any case, that is a slight aside. You hand down all this insane twink gear to your alt. Your alt is then power leveled as quickly as possible to the point that they complete Katava in Act 10. Then your alt, you hand them a high tier map. I'm just going to use Palace as an example, tier 15 Palace. You hand them a tier 15 Palace and they open it from their map device. They will need to do Zana's the first step of Zana's quest chain to do this, to unlock their own map device. They will need to do 1 map at Zana's request. But they don't actually need to kill this stuff themselves. All they need to do is just tag along while your main character does all the work. So, you open up a palace on their account, tier 15 palace, and you complete it. You then log out of this account, and you don't log in for another week. You go and then level up another zombie account and repeat the process. Now let's say that you've got 4 zombie accounts set up after after a whole day spent doing this. Every week you can log into your zombie accounts and you'll have perhaps 6 or 7 Nico missions that will all be on red maps because the last map you completed, the only map that you've completed on this character, was a tier 15 palace. And so you then go and funnel all of the sulfite from these new master missions to your main character. Or you funnel it to other players via the, you sell it to other players in channels like Trade 820 and 840 and the like, the places that people buy and sell sulfite on a regular basis. As I say, this feels like it's sort of pushing the line of maybe possibly being an exploit, but it is entirely possible right now. The only difference is that when the Blight Leak happens, you're only going to need to log into your zombie accounts to withdraw this wealth, these untapped master missions from them once per week. At the moment, if you want to do this zombie account shenanigans, you can do it, but you need to log on every single day to withdraw from them. So currently people find the effort to payoff ratio too low. That is likely to change. You can also do the same thing with Einhar missions as well. I mentioned Nico because Nico missions are the more lucrative, but you can do exactly the same thing with Einhar and get lots and lots and lots of beasts. And whilst most of the beasts are worthless, a small minority of them are worth enough that they end up pushing up the value of an Einhar mission. In any case, those are my thoughts on the Master Mission overhaul. The first question that I've got for you is, do you feel that the zombie accounts shenanigans that I've been discussing, do you feel that this is an exploit that GGG urgently need to address before this goes live? Or do you feel that it's just a sort of cheap tactic that should remain legal? Or do you feel that it is perfectly reasonable? So that's, I guess, the moral slash the moral side of it, or the does it feel like cheating side of things. Then there's a second question, which is, leaving aside how you answer the first one, whether you think it's cheating, whether you think it's perfectly reasonable, or whether you think it's an edge case, and I stand in the edge case category. But leaving that aside, do you think that setting up zombie accounts is going to be worthwhile if these changes go live exactly as described in 3.8? And do you think it's worth setting up zombie accounts now, in the current state of the game? Let me know your thoughts on those 3 questions, and I'm curious to see whether people think that it's that it's a real problem that needs to be addressed, or whether it's something that is perfectly acceptable. In any case, that's all I got on the master changes. I'm really quite excited by them. I think they'll be really good for the game, and ultimately I feel that I get a little bit of an unfair advantage, because for me it's very easy to just come home from work and log on, because unlike many Path of Exile players, I don't have kids, so I don't have those sorts of family responsibilities that make it impossible to do things during the week. And I think 1 or 2 of the people that I work with that have got they've got young kids, and if they were playing this game, they'd get home, they might get home from work at 6 o'clock, and then it's like, oh, there is no way I can play a game. I've got to get the kids ready for their lunches tomorrow, for their dinner tonight, and get them to bed, and then by the time that's finished, I can't be bothered. And so yeah, that's one of those things where at the moment I have quite an advantage over those players, even if they were to play as much as I did. Even if they were to then go on the weekend and play as much as I do, I'd have an advantage over them. I think it's perfectly fair for that advantage to be closed, and so I'm looking forward to these changes. But curious about your thoughts, especially about the question